Vax'tul hated humans. Not in the way most HFY did, with their snide comments about primitive bipeds or underdeveloped cortical structures. No, Vax'tul hated humans because they consistently, infuriatingly refused to die when they were supposed to. Take the one designated Amara Khatri. Scanning for life signs, Vax'tul murmured, adjusting the sensitivity on his biodetector. The device whirred softly as it processed the data, its screen flickering with static before displaying a single, persistent blip. Impossible. The crash site stretched before him, a wound carved into the hostile landscape of Nexus 9. The Terran vessel, what remained of it, lay scattered across 3 square kilometers of razor-sharp rock formations. Twisted metal gleamed under the planet's twin suns, the hull's registration markings still partially visible, TSF Dauntless. Vax'tul's upper membranes fluttered in frustration. The ship had been hit with enough firepower to vaporize a small moon. There shouldn't be survivors. There couldn't be survivors. Yet the biodetector insisted otherwise. Commander Zyarek, he spoke into his comm unit. Initial reconnaissance indicates a single human life form persisting at coordinates Delta 7, requesting permission to terminate. The response came immediately, Commander Zyark's voice resonating with authority. Denied, Lieutenant. The HFY High Command wants specimens, not corpses. Secure the human and transport to base. But, Commander, that's an order, Lieutenant Vax'tul. Or shall I find someone more capable of following simple instructions? Vax'tul's secondary heart pulsed with indignation. No, Commander. Proceeding with capture. As he navigated the treacherous terrain toward the life sign, Vax'tul recalled the intelligence briefing on the human squad. 6 elite soldiers of the Terran Special Forces, each supposedly the best of their species. There had been Dario Montez, the weapons specialist with aim so precise he could shoot the antenna off an insect at 1,000 paces. Eliza Frost, the tactical genius whose strategies had outwitted 3 separate HFY battle cruisers. Kazuo Tanaka, the tech expert who had hacked into supposedly impenetrable HFY networks. Omar Bashir, the medic whose field surgery techniques had saved countless human lives. Rex Thompson, the demolitions expert who could level a city block with improvised explosives. And then there was Amara Khatri, the weakest link. According to intelligence, she was only included in the squad due to some obscure human concept called nepotism. Her file indicated subpar performance in combat simulations, mediocre marksmanship, and physical capabilities well below her teammates. The only area where she excelled was survival training, but what good was survival without combat prowess? Vax'tul snorted through his breathing slits. Of course it would be Khatri who survived. The universe had a twisted sense of humor. As he approached the coordinates, he activated his camouflage shield, his exoskeleton blending seamlessly with the environment. The life sign was emanating from beneath a section of the ship's hull, wedged between 2 jagged rock formations. Through the gap, he could see movement. "Got you," he whispered, readying his neural disruptor. With practiced precision, Vax'tul positioned himself above the opening and prepared to drop down. One clean shot would immobilize the human without killing it. Simple. He jumped. Dumped. The next 3 seconds were a blur of motion. Something sharp sliced across his primary sensory appendage. His neural disruptor went flying. A weight slammed into his thorax. And suddenly he was pinned to the ground, a crude metal blade pressed against his throat sac. "Move, and I will puncture your breathing apparatus," said a calm, steady voice. "Based on your physiology, I'm guessing you'd suffocate in about 30 seconds? Maybe less in this atmosphere." Vax'tul froze, his compound eyes focusing on his attacker. Amara Khatri looked nothing like her file photo. Her dark hair was matted with blood and dirt, her face streaked with grime and what appeared to be engine oil. A nasty burn stretched from her left temple to her jaw. But her eyes, those were exactly as described. Cold, calculating, utterly devoid of fear. "You speak HFY," Vax'tul said, unable to keep the surprise from his voice. I speak 6 languages fluently, including yours. I also know exactly where to cut to sever your neural clusters. She increased pressure on the blade, just enough to prove her point. Now, how many more of you are there? Vax'tul remained silent, his training kicking in. Never reveal information to the enemy. Amara sighed dramatically. Look, we can do this the easy way, where you tell me what I want to know, or the hard way, where I start removing parts of your exoskeleton to see which ones you need most. Your choice. Dare. The entire 7th Fleet orbits this planet, Vax'tul hissed. You have already lost, human. Your squad is dead. Your ship destroyed. Surrender now, and perhaps the scientists will be merciful when they dissect you. To his confusion, Amara smiled. Not the fearful grimace he expected, but a genuine smile that transformed her battered face. So just the standard planetary blockade protocol, then? No ground forces except reconnaissance units like yourself? She nodded thoughtfully. That's manageable. Manageable? Was the human delusional? Vax'tul almost felt pity for her. There is no escape from Nexus 9, he said. The atmosphere is toxic to humans without protection. The native fauna will hunt you for sport. Even if you somehow evaded capture, you would die within days. About that. Amara shifted her weight, keeping the blade steady. I have already survived 6 days. Found water, fashioned weapons. Even made friends with something that resembles a cross between a scorpion and a small dog. I named him Spike. Very loyal once you remove his venom sacs. Vax'tul's membranes fluttered in disbelief. Impossible. The quark scorpids are apex predators. They cannot be tamed. Yeah, your scientists might want to revisit that conclusion. She glanced over her shoulder and whistled sharply. From the shadows emerged a creature approximately the size of a Terran canine, its segmented body gleaming with iridescent scales, multiple eyes fixed unblinkingly on Vax'tul. See? Spike likes me. You, not so much. The quark scorpid clicked its mandibles menacingly, and Vax'tul felt his third heart begin to race. This defied all known behavioral patterns of the species. Now, Amara continued, her tone conversational. Here's what's going to happen. You are going to tell me the exact patrol schedules of your reconnaissance units, the location of your nearest base, and the security protocols for your communication systems. I will die before betraying the HFY Empire, Vax'tul declared, though his voice lacked conviction. Noble. Stupid but noble. She cocked her head, studying him with those unnerving eyes. But here's the thing, Vax'tul, I can call you Vax'tul, right? I saw your name tag, I don't actually need you to talk. Before he could process her words, she had removed something from his utility belt. His communicator. Voice activated, bio-locked, military-grade encryption, she mused, turning the device over in her hand. Kazuo could have hacked this in seconds. Me? I will need about 10 minutes. That's impossible, Vax'tul sputtered. The encryption is based on quantum algorithms developed by Professor Jor Lath of the HFY Science Academy. She finished for him. I studied under him during the peace accords 3 years ago. Brilliant mathematician, terrible Subaxi player. Lost a month's salary to me before he realized I was counting cards. Vax'tul stared at her, his understanding of the universe rapidly unraveling. This was not the mediocre soldier from the intelligence reports. This was something else entirely. You are not just a survivor, he said slowly. No, Amara agreed, her smile turning predatory. I'm a specialist. In what? Infiltration. Intelligence gathering. Asymmetric warfare, she shrugged. My official title is Strategic Disadvantage Analyst. I assess situations where humans are outgunned, outmanned, and outnumbered, then find ways to turn those disadvantages into winning scenarios. Cold dread seeped through Vax'tul's nervous system. The reports. Your performance records. All carefully crafted misinformation. My mediocre marksmanship scores? I deliberately miss certain targets to maintain the illusion. Those combat simulations I failed? Programmed to record losses regardless of my actual performance. She leaned closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. The entire squad knew, of course. It was their job to look impressive while I stayed in the background, observing, analyzing, waiting. For what? For exactly this scenario. She gestured around them, isolated, presumed weak or dead. Enemy underestimating me. Perfect conditions for what comes next. Which is? Amara's smile widened. The part where one human brings down an entire QE lorry fleet. Vax'tul would have laughed if the situation weren't so dire. You are delusional. Even if everything you say is true, you are still alone on a hostile planet with minimal resources against the most powerful military force in the quadrant. True, she conceded. But I have 3 advantages you don't. First, I know exactly what I'm capable of. Second, you have no idea what I'm planning. She patted his shoulder almost affectionately. And third, I now have you. Before Vax'tul could respond, she pressed something against his neck. A sharp pain, then numbness spreading rapidly through his body. Neurotoxin extracted from your own med kit, she explained as his limbs grew heavy. Don't worry, it's not lethal. You will just be taking a nice long nap while I borrow your ship. As consciousness began to fade, Vax'tul heard her speaking to the Quark Scorpid. Guard him, Spike. Mama's got a fleet to infiltrate. His last thought before darkness claimed him was a realization that sent shivers through his entire being. The intelligence reports hadn't been wrong about Amara Khatri being the weakest in her squad. They'd been wrong about what weakest meant. 3 days later, Commander Sci-Fi stood on the bridge of the QE Lari flagship, trying to comprehend the disaster unfolding before him. How? He demanded, his voice echoing across the suddenly silent command center. How does one human disable our primary weapons systems, corrupt our navigation databases, and release hallucinogenic compounds into the air filtration system of 5 separate vessels? The science officer, Mercenary, cleared her throat nervously. According to preliminary analysis, Commander, she used Lieutenant Vax'tul's security clearance to access our network, then deployed a series of viruses specifically designed to target our systems. And the hallucinations affecting the crew of the Relentless? Explain that, science officer. She, appears to have synthesized a compound from native Nexus 9 flora that, when aerosolized, causes QE Lari to experience intense visions of their ancestral predators. ZRX membranes fluttered in agitation. So now I have one ship where the entire crew believes they are being hunted by giant carnivorous moths. Yes, Commander. They have barricaded themselves in the cargo hold and are refusing to come out. Wonderful. Sci-Fi turned to the tactical display, where a small blip representing an escape pod moved steadily away from the chaos. And we can't pursue because... The navigation officer spoke up. She's rigged all pursuit vessels with a feedback loop in their targeting systems. If we lock onto her pod, our own weapons will target our engines instead. Commander Sci-Fi, veteran of 3 interstellar conflicts and decorated hero of the QE Lari Empire, did something he hadn't done in 40 cycles of service. He cursed, loudly and creatively. Commander, the communications officer interrupted. We are receiving a transmission from the escape pod. Put it through, Sci-Fi growled. The view screen flickered to life, revealing Amara Khatri. She looked surprisingly refreshed for someone who had single-handedly brought a fleet to its knees. Her hair was clean, her uniform pressed. She sat casually in the pilot's seat, feet propped up on the console. Hello, Commander Sci-Fi, she said cheerfully. I hope I'm not interrupting anything important. You are declaring war on the entire QE Lari Empire, Sci-Fi snarled. Surrender now, and your death will be quick. Amara laughed, the sound tinkling through the speakers. Always with the death threats. So predictable. But no, I'm not declaring war. I'm delivering a message. What message? The same one my squad was sent to deliver before you shot us down. Her expression hardened slightly. Humanity is willing to negotiate peace, but if pushed, we will fight. And as you have just experienced, we fight, creatively. You expect me to believe this was a peace mission? Sci-Fi scoffed. Check the encrypted files in your database under Terran Diplomatic Registry. The authorization codes are being transmitted to your second officer's terminal now. Sci-Fi glanced at his second officer, who nodded confirmation. Consider this demonstration a sample of what one weak human can do when motivated, Amara continued. Now imagine what we could accomplish as allies instead of enemies. She leaned forward, her face filling the screen. Oh, and Commander? Vax'tul is fine, a little embarrassed, perhaps, but unharmed. I have left him with supplies and a distress beacon that will activate after I have cleared the system. Consider his safe return a gesture of goodwill. The screen went black, then lit up again with a simple text message. Same time next year to continue negotiations? Bring snacks. I like those purple fruit things from your homeworld. Amara Khatri, Strategic Disadvantage Analyst, Terran Diplomatic Corps. As the escape pod jumped to lightspeed, Commander Sci-Fi made a mental note to update all key Lari intelligence files regarding humans, especially the ones about what constitutes weakness in their species. One standard year after the Nexus 9 incident, Vax'tul found himself in the most uncomfortable position of his career. Sitting across from him in the neutral space station designated as Harmony Point was Amara Khatri, casually eating one of the purple Voss fruits he had brought as instructed. These are fantastic, she said, juice dribbling down her chin. Much better fresh than the freeze-dried ones we get in Terran space. Vax'tul's membranes twitched involuntarily. How could she be so relaxed? The last time they'd met, she'd drugged him, stolen his ship, and humiliated the entire 7th Fleet. Are we going to discuss the terms of the treaty, or just your culinary preferences? He asked, unable to keep the edge from his voice. Amara grinned, wiping her mouth with the back of her hand. Multitasking is a human specialty. But yes, let's talk treaty. She pushed a data pad across the table. These are our initial proposals. Nothing too outrageous. Mutual non-aggression, trading rights in the Vega system, cultural exchange programs. Vax'tul scanned the document, his compound eyes narrowing. This is reasonable. You sound surprised. Given your previous actions, I expected demands for reparations at minimum, possibly territorial concessions. Amara leaned back in her chair, studying him. The Nexus 9 incident wasn't about conquest, Lieutenant. It was about demonstration of human barbarism, of what happens when you underestimate your opponent. She tossed the fruit core into a disposal unit. The QE Lari High Command needed to understand that humans aren't just noisy bipeds with primitive technology. We are adaptable, creative, and very, very stubborn. Vax'tul couldn't argue with that assessment. In the past year, the Intelligence Division had completely re-evaluated their understanding of human capabilities. His own report on Amara Khatri had been instrumental in that shift. Your superiors promoted you, Amara observed, nodding toward the new insignia on his uniform. Captain Vax'tul now, is it? Commander, he corrected. I have been assigned as liaison to the Diplomatic Corps. A desk job? After your field experience? That seems wasteful. Vax'tul's secondary heart pulsed with annoyance. It was this or execution for allowing a single human to compromise an entire fleet. Amara winced. Harsh. If it helps, I put in my report that you were exceptionally difficult to subdue. It doesn't help. Fair enough. She straightened, her demeanor shifting to something more formal. Let's get down to business then. The treaty. The space station rocked suddenly, alarms blaring through the corridor. The emergency lights bathed the room in pulsing red. What's happening? Amara demanded, instantly alert. Vax'tul accessed the station's security feed through his neural implant. Unknown vessels attacking the station. Not QE Lari, not human either. Pirates. Possibly. Or he froze as the feed showed several boarding parties breaching the outer hull. The intruders were unmistakable with their distinctive bone-ridged crests and barbed exoskeletons. Kra'vak mercenaries. Amara's expression darkened. Working for whom? There are elements within both our governments who would prefer war to peace, Vax'tul said grimly. The Kra'vak sell their services to anyone with enough currency. How convenient that they attack during peace talks, Amara muttered. Almost like someone wanted to ensure negotiations failed. Another explosion rocked the station, closer this time. The security doors to their meeting room sealed automatically. We need to get to the emergency shuttles, Vax'tul said, moving toward a wall panel that concealed a weapons cache. He extracted 2 plasma rifles, tossing one to Amara. This station has minimal security personnel. Amara caught the rifle with practiced ease, checking its charge. How many Kra'vak? 3 boarding parties. 4 mercenaries each. 12 against 2. She grinned suddenly, a predatory expression that made Vax'tul's spinal ridges tingle. Those poor bastards. Vax'tul stared at her. You can't be serious. Kra'vak mercenaries are infamous throughout the galaxy. They are ruthless, heavily augmented killing machines. And I'm a human who specializes in strategic disadvantages. She tapped her comm unit. Plus, I didn't come alone. The comm crackled to life. Amara? What's your situation? The voice was human, male, with a calm authority that suggested military training. Kra'vak boarding parties, Director Patel. 12 hostiles. Someone doesn't want these peace talks to succeed. Understood. Extraction team is 5 minutes out. Can you hold position? Amara glanced at Vax'tul, eyebrow raised in question. The emergency shuttles are on the other side of the station, he said. We'd have to fight through at least 2 Kra'vak teams to reach them. Then we hold position, Amara told Patel. But send the cavalry sooner rather than later. Copy that. Patel out. Another explosion, even closer. The lights flickered ominously. They are targeting life support systems, Vax'tul observed. Standard Kra'vak procedure. They can survive in vacuum for up to 30 minutes, while we suffocate. Charming. Amara moved to the door, examining the security panel. How long before they breach this section? Minutes at most. She nodded, her mind clearly racing through scenarios. We need to split them up. Make them come at us in smaller groups. How do you propose we do that? Amara's smile was all teeth. By giving them exactly what they want. Before Vax'tul could ask what she meant, she had hacked into the station's communication system and was broadcasting on all frequencies. Attention Kra'vak boarding parties. This is Strategic Analyst Amara Khatri. I understand you are here to prevent peace talks between humans and HFY. Unfortunately for you, I'm rather invested in those talks succeeding. Her voice was cold, clinical. You have 2 options. Leave now or become a case study in my next report on asymmetric warfare. You have 30 seconds to decide. Vax'tul gaped at her. Are you insane? You have just told them exactly where we are. That's the point. Amara began rearranging the furniture, creating choke points and defensive positions. They were going to find us anyway. Now they will rush here, thinking they have the advantage of knowing our location. We will be outnumbered. Correction. They will be outmaneuvered. She pointed to a ventilation shaft in the ceiling. That connects to the adjacent conference rooms, yes? Vax'tul nodded slowly, beginning to understand her plan. You want to ambush them from multiple directions. Bingo. She tossed him a small device, a remote detonator. Plant it near the main door. When they breach, we will give them a warm welcome, then flank them through the ventilation system. This is madness, Vax'tul muttered, but he found himself following her instructions nonetheless. Within minutes, they had transformed the meeting room into a tactical nightmare for anyone attempting entry. Amara had rigged the lighting systems to blind intruders, created makeshift traps from conference equipment, and positioned herself with a clear line of fire to the main entrance. "Get ready," she whispered as the sound of heavy footsteps approached. "Remember, we only need to hold them off until extraction arrives." The door exploded inward in a shower of metal and sparks. Through the smoke, Vax'tul could make out the hulking silhouettes of Kra'vak mercenaries, their bone-ridge crests jutting aggressively from their skulls. "Ow!" Amara shouted. Vax'tul triggered the detonator. The small explosive wasn't powerful enough to kill the Kra'vak, but the concussive force and blinding flash disoriented the first wave. Amara opened fire immediately, her plasma rifle cutting down 2 mercenaries before they could recover. "Move," she ordered, already scrambling toward the ventilation shaft. Vax'tul followed, his longer limbs allowing him to climb swiftly. They crawled through the narrow passage as plasma fire erupted below, scorching the spot where they had been moments before. "That won't hold them long," Amara said, navigating the shaft with surprising agility. "Kra'vak can track by scent. Then what's the point of this exercise?" Vax'tul demanded. "To split their forces. They will send half the team after us while the rest secure the room." They emerged in an adjacent conference room, empty save for a long table and chairs. Amara immediately took up position by the door, motioning for Vax'tul to cover the ventilation shaft they'd just exited. "When they come through, we hit them hard, then circle back," she instructed. "Back, where we just came from. They won't expect us to return to the scene." Basic tactical psychology. Vax'tul wanted to argue, but the sound of movement in the ventilation shaft silenced him. A Kra'vak head appeared, bone ridges scraping against metal as the mercenary forced its bulk through the opening. Amara fired first, her shot catching the Kra'vak between its 4 eyes. It slumped, blocking the shaft momentarily before being pushed aside by another mercenary. "Move," Amara shouted, already heading for the door. They sprinted down the corridor, plasma fire sizzling past them. Vax'tul felt a shot graze his exoskeleton, the heat causing his protective plates to contract painfully. "In here," Amara directed, diving into a maintenance closet. The space was barely large enough for both of them. Vax'tul found himself pressed uncomfortably close to the human, their breathing synchronized in the darkness. "What now?" he whispered. "Now we wait for them to pass, then double back as planned." Sure enough, heavy footsteps thundered past their hiding spot moments later. Amara counted silently on her fingers, 1, 2, 3, 4. 8 remain in the original room, she murmured. "Manageable." Manageable? They are still Kra'vak mercenaries, with predictable tactics and poor adaptability. She checked her rifle charge. "Come on!" They retraced their steps, moving silently through the corridors. As they approached the meeting room, Vax'tul could hear the Kra'vak inside, their guttural language translating through his neural implant. "Must find the treaty data. Supreme Commander Jav Kol wants proof of the negotiations before we eliminate the diplomats." Amara glanced at Vax'tul, mouthing silently, "Jav Kol?" Vax'tul felt his membranes flatten against his skull in shock. Supreme Commander Jav Kol was the head of the HFY Military Council, ostensibly supportive of the peace talks. If he had hired Kra'vak mercenaries to sabotage the negotiations. Amara seemed to read his thoughts. She squeezed his arm briefly, a strange, alien gesture that nonetheless conveyed understanding. "New plan," she whispered. "We need that evidence." Before Vax'tul could respond, she had rolled a small object into the room, a personal recording device, its blinking light indicating active transmission. The Kra'vak reacted instantly, plasma fire reducing the device to molten slag. But the distraction served its purpose. Amara leapt into the doorway, firing with deadly precision. 2 mercenaries fell before the others could redirect their weapons. Vax'tul followed her lead, targeting the Kra'vak closest to the treaty datapad. His shot struck true, sending the mercenary crashing into a wall. The remaining 5 Kra'vak converged on them, bone ridges flaring with aggression. In close quarters, they would have the advantage with their superior strength and natural armor. The ceiling. Amara shouted, firing upward. Vax'tul understood immediately. He targeted the environmental control panel above the Kra'vak. Their combined fire destroyed the panel, releasing a pressurized coolant line. Liquid nitrogen sprayed down, flash freezing anything it touched. 2 Kra'vak were caught directly in the spray, their movements slowing as their exoskeletons froze. The others retreated, giving Amara and Vax'tul precious seconds to maneuver. Get the data pad. Amara ordered, providing covering fire. Vax'tul darted across the room, snatching the pad from where it had fallen. A plasma shot sizzled past his head, so close he could feel his sensory appendages curl from the heat. Got it. Behind you. Vax'tul turned to see a Kra'vak lunging, barbed claws extended. There was no time to bring his weapon to bear. He braced for the impact. A blur of motion, and suddenly Amara was there, intercepting the Kra'vak mid-leap. She was half its size, but she used its momentum against it, redirecting its mass into a wall with a sickening crunch. And the maneuver left her vulnerable. Another mercenary swung at her, its claws raking across her back. She cried out, stumbling forward. Amara. Vax'tul fired repeatedly, driving the Kra'vak back from her fallen form. The remaining mercenaries regrouped, preparing for a final assault. Vax'tul stood over Amara, weapons trained on the approaching threat. His chances of survival were minimal, but perhaps he could buy enough time for her extraction team to arrive. Then the station rocked with a new explosion, but this one came from outside. Through the viewport, Vax'tul saw a sleek vessel approach, its design unlike anything in the HFY or Terran fleets. Weapon ports opened along its hull, targeting the Kra'vak ship docked to the station. Took them long enough, Amara muttered, struggling to her feet despite her injury. The Kra'vak mercenaries hesitated, sensing a shift in the tactical situation. Their momentary distraction was all Vax'tul needed. He fired, taking down another before they could react. Suddenly, the air shimmered around them as transport beams activated. Armed figures materialized in the room, humans in advanced combat armor, weapons already targeting the remaining Kra'vak. Secure the package. Barked a tall human with dark skin and a neatly trimmed beard. Director Patel, Vax'tul presumed. The extraction team made short work of the mercenaries, their coordinated attack leaving no chance for resistance. Within moments, the Kra'vak were either dead or restrained. Status report, Patel demanded, moving to Amara's side. I'm fine, she insisted, though the blood seeping through her uniform suggested otherwise. We have evidence. The Kra'vak were hired by Supreme Commander Jav'Kol to sabotage the peace talks. Patel's expression hardened. That complicates matters. On the contrary. Amara nodded toward Vax'tul, who still clutched the datapad. It simplifies them. Commander Vax'tul and I were just discussing how some elements within both our governments prefer war to peace. Now we know who they are. Vax'tul stepped forward, his decision made in that moment. I request political asylum with the Terran government. I will testify regarding Jav'Kol's treachery before the Galactic Council. Patel raised an eyebrow, looking to Amara for confirmation. She nodded, wincing as a medic treated her wounds. He's with us, and he brings gifts. She gestured to the datapad. Evidence of conspiracy at the highest levels of HFY military command, plus the original peace treaty proposals. Which we will need to revise, Vax'tul added. The current terms are insufficient given these developments. Amara grinned through her pain. See? He's thinking like a diplomat already. Patel sighed, the sound of a man who had grown accustomed to Amara's unconventional methods. Extraction in 2 minutes. Let's not push our luck. As the team prepared for transport, Vax'tul found himself standing beside Amara once more. Why did you save me? He asked quietly. You could have secured the datapad yourself. Amara looked at him, her expression serious for once. Because that's what humans do, Vax'tul. We protect our allies, even the ones who once tried to capture us for dissection. I was following orders, and now you are defying them for something greater. She offered her hand, a human gesture of agreement. That's what makes you different. That's why you will be valuable in building this peace. Vax'tul hesitated, then clasped her hand with his three-fingered grip. The HFY High Command will send assassins. Kol has many loyal followers. Let them come. Her smile returned, that predatory expression that had first unsettled him on Nexus 9. I specialize in strategic disadvantages, remember? And what greater disadvantage than being outnumbered, hunted, and fighting against impossible odds? She winked. It's practically my comfort zone. As the transport beams enveloped them, taking them to the safety of the Terran vessel, Vax'tul realized a fundamental truth about humans that no HFY intelligence report had ever captured. Their greatest strength wasn't their technology, or their adaptability, or even their tenacity. It was their capacity to turn enemies into allies, to forge connections where none seemed possible, to create something new from the ashes of conflict. That was why Amara Khatri had been the weakest in her squad. Not because she lacked skills or courage, but because her true power lay beyond conventional metrics of strength. She didn't need to be the best fighter when she could turn fighters into friends. And that, Vax'tul reflected as they materialized aboard the Terran ship, was perhaps the most terrifying power of all. 6 months later, when the revised peace treaty was signed before the Galactic Council with Supreme Commander Kol conspicuously absent, having been arrested for treason, Vax'tul stood proudly beside Amara as joint ambassadors of a new interstellar alliance. Not bad for the weakest member of your squad, he commented as they watched the HFY and human representatives exchange ceremonial gifts. Amara laughed, the sound echoing in the grand chamber. I was never the weakest, Vax'tul. I was just playing a different game entirely. And as diplomats from a dozen worlds approached to discuss joining their alliance, Vax'tul understood that in this game the one that truly mattered, Amara Khatri, might just be the strongest player of all.